Hey friend, welcome to Grounded, the vestibular podcast. I'm Dr. Madison Oak, aka the Vertigo Doctor. I am the vestibular physical therapist who is here to help you with all things dizziness, imbalance, and vertigo. In this podcast, we explore the fascinating world of vestibular disorders. Come with me as we dive headfirst into a journey to discover the mysteries of the brain, the inner ear, and the balance mechanisms that keep us grounded. Whether you've been managing dizziness for one day or 25 years, we're going to get real about what it takes to manage dizziness, handle the anxiety cycle, and thrive, not just survive, with your vestibular disorder. First, I want to remind you that this is never medical advice. Remember, this podcast is for informational purposes only and may not be the best fit for you and your personal situation. It shall not be construed as medical advice. The information and education provided here is not intended or implied to supplement or replace professional medical treatment, advice, and/or diagnosis. Always check with your own physician, medical professionals, and healthcare team before trying or implementing any information found here. Meet me in your coziest chair while we navigate the highs and lows, the twists and turns of the vestibular universe. Welcome to Grounded. Let's dive in. Hello, my friends. Today we're going to start with the win of the week. So, this one is really fun by Sarah, who's been on this podcast in April 7th of last year. So, 2023. It's currently May of 2024. She posted that she really wanted to get on her mountain bike this summer, and she posted a video she was doing with her physical therapist about like how she was going to train for this, and she did not make it last summer, but that was her goal, but it just didn't happen. And you can listen to kind of her story with biking and mountain biking and all the things on her podcast, which was released earlier this year, or end of last year, I mean. But 2 days ago from when we were recording this, Sarah posted in Vestibular Group Fit this post of her getting back on not only her bike, but her mountain bike. And she's biked before, but mountain biking is something that she really wanted to return to. And it says, quote, "In life, we must first learn to crawl, then stand, then walk, then run, and only then fly. We cannot crawl into flying." Quote. Then she says, "I haven't been on my mountain bike in 3 years, and today I got back on it and conquered the dirt, the rocks, the roots, and the swooping berms, and a little bit of fear. I can't tell you how many times in the last year I wanted to give up, how many times I secretly flipped my VRT exercises the middle finger. I have worked on my wobble board, bounced on a trampoline, hopped off little balls throughout my living room, done what it feels like thousands of vision exercises, and so much more, and it all got me to this place today. The reward was sweet, as I anticipated. It was so hard for me to take small steps. For anyone getting into this journey, going slow and starting with those small steps really does pay off. It might seem super frustrating. You will see immense gains and huge wins. I've had some incredibly great days, but I've also had some gut-wrenching setbacks. I've cried more tears than a normal person should cry, but this is proof that the work pays off. In mountain biking, you will always hear one phrase: don't look down. Only look where you want to go. Seems pretty appropriate for those of us on a vestibular journey. Keep kicking butt and looking at where you want to go in this life. I love this so much, and I have Dr. Jenna here as I'm recording this. I love this so much because it really goes to show the small things that you do in order to get to your bigger wins. And Sarah's been a member of Vestibular Group Fit for over 2 years at this point. She is like an OG day one kind of a member. She's so great. And she also knows what true hard work towards your goal really needs. And we just think this is such a great win. So congrats to Sarah for putting in the hard work and doing the hard thing.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. And when we were looking for this recent message, then we saw like what she was working on with PT. And I think it's fun when you get to bring your own personal goals into it and then also working with it. Like I think it's fun as a PT because then you're like, let me see what things we have to better recreate this and like get a little more creative with it too. So I thought it was just a really fun mix of like everyone getting to have fun with it, even though, like she said, there's so many exercises and it has the ups and the downs. And sometimes you just want to like yell at them and be like, I really don't want to do you. But like she stuck with it and I'm so happy for her.
Me too. It makes me so happy. And it really dives into our episode today about movement and migraine slash vestibular migraine. So if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, it is June 4th, which means it is officially Migraine and Headache Awareness Month. So wear your purple. I'm still not wearing my purple, which I said last week I was going to do. But, I'm packing. I'm allegedly moving houses.
Do
If
you
you're listening
have
to this
a lot of
now,
purple?
I have a purple sweater, but it's in a box.
Oh, I was like, I think
I'm not a big purple person,
as a
but
Minnesota, like a lot of Minnesota sports have some
they are
purple,
purple. Yeah,
but
it's like Wisconsin
I
and red.
I don't really like have them.
Yeah, well, you're from Wisconsin, so you should own
Yeah,
some of
I
red.
do rebel a little bit against Minnesota sports, but if Minnesota has a sports team that Wisconsin doesn't, sure, I'll root for you.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, like women's hockey, which is fun.
They're purple, so I should get some
They you
purple.
should get some purple for Migraine Headache Awareness Month and for women's hockey. That all being said, I'm still not wearing purple. If you're watching on YouTube, I don't know. It's all packed up. I only have neutrals right now. Doesn't matter. Today we're going to be talking about managing migraine just with movement. And last week we talked about the toolkit for migraine. So I talked a little bit of like all the things that you need to consider about your migraine journey and vestibular journey as a toolkit. Like it's a treatment pie or the wheel of management or whatever you want to call it. It's never just going to be one thing. And I wish it was. I wish it was like, here's some Zoloft, you're going to feel better. Here's like amitriptyline, you're going to feel fantastic. But that's just not the way it works. And so this month, in honor of MHAM, we wanted to go through the different things. So this week we're going to do movement. Next week, Dr. Emily and I are going to talk a little bit about mindset. And then we'll talk kind of about what migraine is and just throughout the month. So should be a fun month of podcasts. Definitely stay tuned. But let's dive into movement. First thing you need to know, and really the only thing you need to know, you could probably turn it off after this, is that you have to exercise. You have to.
And not just for all the other reasons everyone always knows about or hears about, but for migraine conditions
Yes.
specifically.
Yes. We're not even going to go into like bone density and cardiac function and happiness levels and hormones and sleep and all of
And
the other things.
stress and
Literally, it's like exercise is the thing that will improve your life no matter what stage you're at. Even if you're a person who has exercised before, if you've never exercised, like it is, they say, like the number one thing for longevity. It is the best thing you can do for yourself, truly. But that's also really hard when you're dizzy. You do not want to exercise or move, right? Like this is one of the biggest complaints and issues we hear is like, I can't get back to the gym because I don't feel good and lighting's terrible. Or like, I don't even know where to begin because like, if I even like move my finger, I feel dizzy. Someone was saying the other day that like, if she swings her arms back and forth when she's just standing still, even she's like, that makes me dizzier. And that's like a perturbation. We're not surprised that makes you dizzier, but it is a thing. So how do we go about this? So let's kind of cover the gauntlet.
yeah, I think too, kind of in that regard, like we are going to talk about exercise for the benefit of managing migraine conditions, just long-term management and all the other health benefits aside. But I think too, just when you hear exercise, there's like a certain image that pops into your head of like someone super muscular at the gym or going to these like full-on classes and like making this like a quite intense thing, or you're like trying to show up and be like, I don't know how to work these machines, I don't know how long to go for. Like sometimes the things that we think when we hear the word exercise isn't necessarily where we're saying you start. That might be something in 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year. Like there's exercise, there's movement, and they can kind of be a little bit of an intertwined thing. So I think thinking of it more as movement that then starts to evolve into exercise can feel a little less daunting, hopefully.
Totally. Totally. And I think we've referenced this person on the podcast before, but like there's a lot of influencers out there who are like, you have to do this and you have to do that. Nothing needs to be black and white, and everything in health, in science, not everything, I should say, but most things can operate in some sort of gray area. So you don't have to just like go balls to the wall and start like training for a marathon. Like that's just not what you need to do. But start with literally like, can I walk to my mailbox and back? Can I sit down and stand up from my couch 10 times? And everyone, I feel like, and I say this a lot, but everyone feels like they look at me with six heads when I'm like, okay, start with 2 minutes of exercise. And then no one does it the first couple weeks. And they're like, I'm going to start with a whole class, or I'm going to do 45-minute workout. And then they're like, oh my God, exercise makes me dizzier. I can never do that again. And I'm like, well, did you start with 3 minutes? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, let's start with 3 minutes. And they're like, oh, I can do 3 minutes. Now I can do 5 minutes. Now I can do 10 minutes. And kind of like working up in these increments is going to be really important to help you scale. And that's something that Dr. Jenna and I really, really never shut up about, especially in vestibular group fit. Like we never shut up about it.
Yeah, I think sometimes we kind of get into that, like, I don't know if it's not quite like some cost fallacy, but it's kind of with that like consistency of like,
Mm-hmm.
if I can't do a full class, I'm not going to do it at all type of mindset that gets a little bit more black and white with it. And it gets
Mm-hmm.
tougher. You're like, well, why would I go through all this stuff just for 2 minutes of like getting my clothes changed or putting on tennis shoes just to walk to my mailbox and back? It's like, but you got to start somewhere. That's not where you want to be forever, but you got to start with where you're at and build off of that. And if you don't really know where your limit is, it's better to start with less and learn to toe where that threshold is and to feel like you're just overshooting it every time too.
100%. And yeah, you have to start somewhere. I love that kind of like sunk cost fallacy situation. Well, I don't love it. It's obviously an issue, but like I agree with it in that like you don't actually need to put on your exercise clothes to exercise. Like you could get on, let's say you have a recumbent bike that you like to use. You can get on that in your whatever you wore, your pajamas from last night or your work clothes from this afternoon. I think there's this like thing where like we have to change into leggings and a t-shirt, and then it's like, am I wearing the right leggings, right? Like a patient yesterday asked me, and this is a perfectly reasonable question, like are we don't have to get into this, but like are like the leggings that aren't 100% organic cotton bad for you? And it's like you can only do so much, right? If that's what's going to get you to exercise, like just wear like literally whatever the heck you want. And there also used to be a thing from National College of Sports Medicine, or yeah, right? NC, yeah. And they used to say that you had to exercise for 10 minutes for it to be worth it. Like if you exercise for less than 10 minutes, it doesn't count. But new research has come out and said if you exercise for any amount of time, it does count. And something is always, always superior to nothing. So let's kind of go through like different kinds of exercise. And you should know there are hundreds, if not thousands, of peer reviewed articles on exercise for migraine. And pretty much every single one, I haven't read every single one. That's why I can't say every single one, but every single one that I have read basically shows that exercise is going to improve your cognition, reduce the amount of brain fog, and increase the handle that you will have on your migraine disorder over everything else. And it even addresses like migraine that is induced by exercise, like exercise induced migraine that some people have. Um, so that is something to consider as well. So even if you're like, I can't do high impact exercise for whatever reason that gives me a migraine attack, do know that even those people in that category, you also can benefit from um, exercise. So maybe let's start with walking.
I
Seem
love
reasonable?
walking.
Me too.
And also I think I know some of the fitness people that we both really like, they just talk about like walking is a good thing. Like if don't think that you have to run or jog or do these high intensity cardio things for it to feel beneficial. Like getting up and moving is super helpful. And I was just Googling, I should have like tried to find it before this, but there was like this NPR article that talks about like just the daily movements that we do and how that really builds up over time. They're like, exercise is great to do it in this concentrated dose, but sometimes it's these little things of us just going up and down the stairs to do the laundry, standing while we make a home cooked meal. Like all this little activity builds up over the course of a day. So I think walking kind of acts in that similar essence.
Absolutely, it does. We are humans are literally designed to move. Like movement is so good for you. And I was just editing the walking audios that Kelsey and I are doing for group. And she in one of them, I listen to every single one. And she is like, um, but humans are meant to move. Like we often fear running and we often fear walking, but we are designed to do both of these things. And again, you do not have to run, but like getting up and just getting some movement throughout the day is so important. And they did a study that I think I referenced like 8 times on this. It might be a similar one to the NPR article, but I think I've referenced this like 8 times on this podcast alone, where at Columbia, they had people like sit and work in like an office chair all day at the like lab or whatever. And they measured their fatigue levels and their blood pressure and their blood sugar and like all of these markers throughout the day on a day where they didn't do a lot of movement during their 8 hour workday. And then the next day they had them come in again, exact same set of people, same setting, same everything. But every 30 minutes, they had them get up and walk for 5 minutes. Their blood sugar, blood glucose, or blood, that is blood sugar, their blood glucose, their blood pressure, and their heart rate and their fatigue levels were all in more normalized levels, literally for walking 5 minutes. I guess that was like 12 to 16 times in a day, which is a lot. So maybe like don't force yourself to start doing that. But like if you couldn't even get up like every 45 minutes to an hour and like go get yourself a glass of water and come back or go pee and come back or whatever, that alone will help regulate your whole body into homeostasis.
And could be a really great way of starting smaller. And usually when I talk to like home health people, I'm always like, like knee replacements. I'm like, I know this sheet says like do 20 or 30 reps. I was like, if you do that all in a row right now, you're probably going to be like hating me because you're in so much pain. I'm like, I'd rather you do like 3 or 4. Your pain goes up, you wait an hour. It's like staying much more middle, even keeled here, and you just do 3 or 4 every hour on the hour. And then over the course of a day, you're doing just as many as that sheet or more, and your pain's staying much more managed. So that's where I go. Dizziness can feel like the same way in certain situations. So, like, let me just walk a little bit. Let me know where that line is, stay just underneath it, and just try to do it a little bit more throughout the day as I can.
Totally, completely agree with that. And there is exercise. There are studies. My God, there are studies to show the efficacy of um, aerobic training during, not during a migraine attack, but for people who have migraine as a disorder or disease for aerobic exercise, both a high intensity and low intensity to show the reduction of frequency and intensity of migraine attack, which is the gold standard goal for migraine treatment is not to eradicate migraine from your brain, because right now, unfortunately, we don't have a cure, but the goal is to reduce the frequency and intensity, and walking/exercise will help that. So that's fun. Next is strength training. So in a study, I mean, there are so many more studies on walking than there are on strength training, just because like people have been walking for longer than they've been strength training, slash like using that as a migraine protocol to study, I think is like, shouldn't say easier, but like easier than strength training for a lot of reasons. Plus, it's easier to get people to walk, and it's easier to fund a study for walking than it is strength training. It's easier to get people to walk. There's a million reasons that walking is an easier study than strength training, but there are, I have a systematic review and network meta-analysis of clinical trials pulled up right here for a strength training versus aerobic exercise, which is fun. And it said basically a systematic review and network meta-analysis was performed, determining the efficacy of exercise interventions in reducing frequency of monthly migraine. And it found in the 21 published research clinical trials that there was a, I'm gonna have to
Drum
edit this.
roll,
Drum
drum
roll,
roll.
please. Strength training, high intensity aerobic exercise, moderate intensity aerobic exerise, topiramate, placebo, and amitriptyline. 85% of the included studies demonstrated low risk of bias, while 15% of blah 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 blah. So in a study from 2022, they looked at a systematic review and network meta-analysis of trials and concluded that strength training exercise regimen demonstrated the highest efficacy in reducing migraine burden, followed by high intensity aerobic exercise. Now, everyone's going to be like, but what about vestibular migraine? I want to remind everyone that vestibular migraine is migraine. Migraine is migraine is migraine. We are taught that migraine is a headache. That is not true. Migraine is a neurological disorder that is very complex and presents in many, many, many different ways. So, that being said, it is important to understand that vestibular migraine doesn't have like almost any research on it in comparison to classic migraine, which also has hardly any research compared to like other disorders. So we have to extrapolate from the classic migraine research into vestibular migraine. Like we have to do the same thing with like chronic subjective dizziness into triple PD. Like there's just not enough research, but strength training again is incredibly effective at reducing migraine burden. We see it all the time in vestibular group fit. It is why in vestibular group fit we started with strength training as classes. If you guys don't know the story, it was literally me and Jenna teaching like 2 or 3 classes a week for months and months and months until it turned into what group is now. But strength training increases neuroplasticity. It helps you with your neck strength, which is going to help with ultimately like the neck pain migraine cycle. It helps with brain derived neurotropic factor, helps with confidence. It helps with dopamine. It helps with literally everything. And muscle growth is what ultimately strength training is doing. Also helps you regulate your blood sugar, your insulin, your uh pretty much most like your sex hormones. Most things in the world are regulated by not regulated by, but partially regulated and moderated by muscle mass. And so strength training is going to help you increase muscle mass, which is going to help you regulate the rest of your body. Does that make sense? Anything I just said?
It's all connected, right?
Totally.
Yeah, I think too, just strength training. It's nice that they did do the research because I know walking, it's you don't have to have equipment. It's, as long as you have a somewhat wearable pair of shoes, heck, if you feel comfortable being barefoot, like it really is a fairly low entry activity to try to do to work on your health. Fitness, strength training, there can be more equipment involved. It can be a little bit more expensive. We do try to incorporate some like home versions as well to use for weights just as an intro thing. But, sometimes people get worried about technique. Am I doing it right? Like, how do I know if too much is too much or not enough? And just a lot more questions open up, which can be a little bit more intimidating, but it's nice that they did a study that shows, hey, here's this version, strength, walking, and you can get relatively same outcomes, especially when you live in a place with poor weather part of the year. You might say, I like walking. I want to try to do it when I can. I'll try to do some indoor versions, but at least I can maybe focus a little bit more on strength during that time and still get those same benefits. And then you also get the other benefits with strength training and that like cross training benefit too, having that variety.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And from two people who do not live in 100% nice weather states, we feel yeah, and you can't always get out to walk. So strength training is an awesome, unless you have a treadmill, but some people don't like treadmills. So,
Yeah, everywhere outside of California.
and Florida,
Ooh, it's
it
way too
gets
hot.
too hot.
It was like 80 degrees with 90% humidity when I would
Oh,
try to get up and run at like 5 a.m. in the
oh my
pitch
God.
dark. And then I thought there was a bobcat in the middle of the street and it was a deer. And then another time I thought there was a crocodile and it was just one of those like palm frond trunk things like laying there. And I was like, it's too dark. I don't like this. Like, I.
For those of you who don't know, Dr. Jenna did a clinical internship in Florida.
I was like, this is too much Florida for me. Like, I don't think I'm ever gonna retire there. I love that people like it, but I
How
don't.
very un-Midwestern of you.
Hey, Arizona's the other big one.
I guess that's true. Anyways, um, the next one we're going to talk about is another one that, of course, we offer in group, and we are going to talk about yoga for migraine. So, yoga for migraine is amazing, honestly, and is something that I think everyone with migraine should be doing. It helps you improve your cognitive function, which a lot of people who have trouble with brain fog and word finding and all of that, yoga, I wouldn't say like is your like it's not going to be like the end all be all of treatment, right? But it is really helpful and appears to be associated with a modest improvement in cognitive function, which is amazing. And also then another study with the effectiveness of yoga therapy for migraine treatment, a meta-analysis of randomized control studies. This the results revealed that compared with control group for migraine, yoga therapy was associated with a remarkably decreased pain intensity, headache frequency, headache duration, HIT-6 scores, and the MIDAS or MIDAS score, which are just objective measures for migraine. This is amazing. And again, this is another one where we have to like extrapolate or pull information from classic migraine into the vestibular migraine world. And we offer yoga once or twice a week, every single week, for this exact reason, because it is so incredibly beneficial for people with vestibular disorders. And Candy teaches it, who everyone loves.
And since we have, yeah, candy, it's again that nice, like, okay, when I think of yoga, I think I'm a human pretzel. But like, no, there's again this whole spectrum of what yoga can be. And just knowing sometimes it's a mix of like, I was talking to um, my lovely significant other, better half here, and I was like, do Pilates with me. And she was like, I like when you've already done the class because you can vet it, you can tell me what's going on. And I feel like that's kind of what it's like when there's like vestibular group fit ones where it's like, you can like, yes, you can find things on YouTube. There's so many things out there on YouTube, but it's hard to find the one you like, the style that you like, and making sure it's not like these crazy moves that you're like, I never want to try to do these. Like, how do I find one at my level? My ideal length of time, my style. And that's where it's nice when you're like, at least I like know what I'm signing up for when it's all kind of curated in this one space.
Yes, 100%. And Candy is so good about that in class. Like I've taken many of her classes, and like depending on how I'm feeling that day, it's like always different. She has chair yoga, and if it's like she says like I'm gonna do a child's pose or I'm gonna do a downward dog, she gives you two or three other options of things that you can do that are different. So if you're like that terrifies me, I am not doing that. She's like, okay, do this instead or take this position instead. And that is my favorite thing about yoga. And my favorite thing about Candy is because she has worked with different health populations just throughout her whole career in teaching and in just kind of working in the health related space. And then applying that all to yoga, she is just the best. Everyone loves her, truly. And she also teaches our Pilates class, which we'll talk about next. But yeah, finding something that is specifically for you is so important. 100%.
And
Alrighty.
I know it's out there, but
Uh-huh.
it's just nice when you just know. Like it's so much work to
100%.
try to hunt and search and try and then feel like it's not working. So,
Yeah, like the amount of scrolling you're gonna have to do through YouTube, it's just like not worth it, honestly. Just join group and take class. It's just it'll be worth it, I promise. And you also get access to like if you're like once a week of yoga is not enough, like there's a whole like probably by now like 100 yoga classes you could take if you want to take it more than once and you don't want to take it only live or whatever. I don't know.
and you can save them.
There's
So if there's ones you really like, you can
exactly.
save it.
You just save it. You press heart and it'll be in your account automatically. The next one is Pilates, and I really, really, really like Pilates for migraine. One of my very favorite parts about it is not actually for the like, this has a direct relationship to migraine. Rather, its effect on postural alignment and body composition. So, exercises are performed symmetrically to strengthen the deep muscles. Yay. Moreover, the results showed that, and I will link all of these studies, I promise. The results showed that muscle mass was correlated to trunk postural alignment. The proper amount of muscle is critical in maintaining trunk postural alignment. So this helped improve posture, which we love for a lot of reasons. Posture is not about just like, I'm going to sit straight all the time. It's about being able to kind of move through different positions without pain and kind of sit in different postures. And I love this because it helps to strengthen your neck, your back, your core, which ultimately is what's holding you up no matter what posture you're in. And that is what I love so much about Pilates. It reduces neck pain. There are so many great things about Pilates, which ultimately end up helping migraine.
And it doesn't involve that machine all the time, the scary
Totally.
machine that looks scary because I don't know how to use it. So I think it's scary. I'm sure it's great and fine. But again, that barrier to entry type of thing. And you can do them on the mat. I do it. I think I get a great workout. I understand that, okay, this does teach you to brace and strengthen. And part of what you were saying with posture is you want to be able to be comfortable moving into different positions. Our body's meant to move. It's okay to slouch and do these different things because we like the variability. But Pilates just gives us that reminder of we can still brace and support our body while in these positions. So there's kind of that like extra layer that we don't always do or maybe think about or realize is important. And they just make that kind of the core focus of how they move through their exercises.
Totally. And the inventor, it's a very like female dominated world in Pilates, but I want everyone to know that the founder of Pilates is Joseph Pilates, right?
Yeah.
Joseph Pilates, I think, right? And it is not just for women. I have a friend who owns a Pilates studio with reformers in town, and it is a great workout. And it has lots of men in there. Her husband's always in there. There's dudes in there all the time. So we have a very small male listenership, according to my analytics. But Pilates is not just for women. It is so hard. My husband literally I was like, you want to come to Pilates with me? And he is a power lifter. He can deadlift almost 400 pounds. Like, dude is freaking strong. He was, that's too hard. So it is a great workout. Start small. Candy also teaches this, and she'll give you modifications and all of things. So it's not going to be something that's impossible, but it is an excellent postural workout, or just a workout in general. It is a burner.
My dad threw out his back with the last little like spring snowstorm push that happened. And I was like, once you start feeling better, I'm going to try to get you and mother onto some Pilates because he's like, I just think I need to walk and stretch. I'm like, but also let's add this into it too and see if it helps.
I think it'll definitely help.
So,
All right, couple more sections we have. We talked about cardio, just general migraine prevention, yoga, Pilates, strength. And then we have Dr. Jenna here who teaches our Tai Chi class. So I'm going to let you talk about why Tai Chi is important. We obviously have it in group, but we're really just covering all the bases of all the exercises, which we do in group anyway. But this is amazing. Tai Chi helps you improve vestibulopathic gait and does fall prevention. Why is that?
yeah, I know there was again NPR. There was an NPR article, like I think it was like end of last year or something, that kind of got people's attention because it talked about how it can improve, like it was helping like memory scores because of the like coordination and movement of my feet are doing one thing, my arms are doing another thing. So there are some other benefits there. They also looked at, strength and balance improvements as well because it's standing, you're standing the whole time, you're not getting on the ground, you're not putting your head like below upright or anything there. So it's nice because there's always that reminder of feet are shoulder width apart. You have a little bit of a bend in the knees. So now we're relying on our muscles for the movement and stability. So that's why it can be a strengthening, almost like you're in a little mini squat. And then also really trying to control those movements. And we do talk about strength as a way to increase muscle strength and lifting heavy things, but also having less weight, but having to use that muscle for a longer period of time is another way to strengthen and even fatigue a little bit. So it can be a really nice, gentle way. You're really having to focus in the moment for those movements, just really trying to be present with feeling that weight shift in your feet, feeling that flow, trying to be very flowy with your movements and focusing on those. So there can be that mindset, the strength, and then you're learning how to weight shift and position and move your body. So when you're going about your day, you're carrying that through, and that can help with fall prevention as well.
I am obsessed with this for vestibular disorders. I also, when we were talking about adding Tai Chi into group, I remember you said something that has really stuck with me, which this is not like proven by any study because, again, we just don't have studies on this stuff. You're like, I noticed in my population of people I treat with vestibular disorders, people who have been doing Tai Chi for an extended period of time or really any amount of time are getting better faster than the people who are not doing Tai Chi. And that was just like your observation, but like clinical observation is a really important thing in treatment and understanding kind of what people are going through. And I was like, huh, that is so fascinating to me. And I know people really love your Tai Chi classes. So, yay.
Yeah. And I think even from what I've been learning as I've been taking classes is you do hold your arms up, and even just holding your arms up at shoulder length for 10, 15 minutes, like even
Don't
if,
make me try it.
even a minute or two, like it your arms get heavy when they're just hanging there, and then we're trying to work on your arms are up but your shoulders are relaxed. Like you don't need to be adding all this strain in your neck. It's supposed to be calm, giant, quiet, and gentle. I tried combining those words. But so I think it does add in some of that like upper body strength, the neck position, the
Oh,
head
yeah.
position, and then the weight shifting as well. So I think there's kind of those the warm-ups even we're doing exercises or stretches that I would give people in a PT clinic where I'm like, "Oh, like we probably took this from you." Even in Pilates, I'm like, "Oh, we probably took this from you and put it in a PT clinic." Like, so I think that's why there's all those carryover and bleed through. And it's interesting when you start expanding where it's coming from and learning like, oh, we're like taking this from other people.
Absolutely. It's so true. And I recently, this is like sort of off topic, but back to like your holding positions for long term. Holding positions for long term is so incredibly difficult. My friend had me come to a couple Kundalini yoga classes, which is like a very specific type of yoga. You're laughing at me, but I went. And let me tell you, the first time I ever went, like the woman who was teaching it didn't know that like I had never been before. And if you've not been to Kundalini yoga, it is different and hard. And she didn't know that my friend and I had never really been. And so she was just doing like this very specific Kriya, and it was 4 11-minute U's. And I had to hold a U shape with my body in 4 different ways for 11 minutes each. And let me tell you, minute one and minute two alone, I was like, how am I supposed to hold this? But once you get into the posture and you're like, oh, I need to do this the right way, and then like focus on your breath and like almost not separate yourself, not dissociate, but like focus on like your internal core and breath and things like that, it really helps. And you don't have to use the muscles you're not supposed to be using. So then I went again last week and I had to do like my thumbs were in and my hands are in a V for I think 6 minutes. And we had to do a very specific type of breathing. And I was thinking about you and about Tai Chi, and my hands were over my head and it was all coming to my neck. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, okay, I know better than this. Engage my shoulder blades, drop my shoulders, relax my neck, stack myself. And just doing those little things throughout, I was like, oh, I see this. And like, this is clearly going to help me strengthen my shoulders in like isometric holding positions for long periods, whatever. But also, like, that's such an insane, like, cognitive workout at the same exact time because you're also supposed to be breathing in a specific pattern. And like, that just goes to show, like, what amazing things you can do without necessarily having any weight.
Yeah, it's good mindset. And then
Mm-hmm.
also just kind of tuning in more with your body of what do I need to do this? What don't I
Mm-hmm.
need? How
Mm-hmm.
do I do these minor little movements? Like, I know like going back to Pilates, there's that like the imprints they talk about in PT school. We learned it as like pelvic tilt and like a chin tuck or, that like deep cervical neck flexion and all this stuff. And then I'm like, okay, this is like helping learn these little movements that like I learned in PT school in a very specific way. And they're like, oh, you're catching on for like not doing this before. I'm like, that's because I struggled like a baby giraffe trying to walk in PT school trying to do these movements. So I've had a little bit of practice, but like there's other ways to do it instead of going to PT school.
100%. We struggled then, so we can fly
Struggle a
now.
little less now.
Struggle a little bit less. Yeah, like fly in bumpy terrain. I don't know. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to bring up was dance. And we haven't had Bridget on the podcast yet, but we will. Bridget is has her MFA, so Masters of Fine Arts in dance, and she has vestibular migraine and triple PD, and she has been dealing with it beautifully. And she recently released a short film about this for her master's program in media studies, I think, film and media. I'm getting that wrong probably, but it's beautiful. If you haven't watched it, DM me and I'll send it to you. But dance for neuroplasticity is absolutely huge, as well as the influence of dance training on challenging postural control tasks. And if you are having trouble integrating your vestibular system with your proprioception, knowing where your body is in space, can I see and make myself do the thing at the same time, sort of a situation, dance is phenomenal for this. You have to do different things with your hands and your feet and your breathing and your core all at the same time. She's doing jazz and ballroom, I think the cha-cha and maybe foxtrot and another kind, plus
Salsa,
ballet,
I think it's,
salsa. I think
yeah.
you're right. She has chair dance. Like I don't know if anyone knows this. I take Bridget's dance classes. Like I'm obsessed with them. They're so fun. I suck at dance. I quit ballet at like 5 years old because I was like, yeah, I for sure need to like play soccer or something. I don't know. But it is so fun and such a cognitive challenge for me. And I think that's probably good for my brain. So I keep taking them. But like, it is a wild world out there in dance. And I know a lot of people have said in the past, and one of our members is actually in her film, and she's like, I love your dance because it makes me feel like beautiful and it makes me feel like myself and like I can move again freely. And she's like, I don't normally feel like that, but like when I take Bridget's dance classes, I'm able to move my body in a way that I never thought I would before, with having like concussion and vestibular migraine or triple PD. And I'm just, it makes me so happy that people feel that way from something that we can offer and something that Bridget can help with. And she has vestibular migraine, so she understands it. And Kelsey, who teaches cardio and high intensity strength training, also has vestibular migraine, so she understands. Like, it's truly the best, safest place to take a workout class in vestibular group fit if you have a vestibular disorder, which you should be exercising. I cannot stress this enough. Um, but Bridget really does such an amazing job with those classes, and I wanted to talk about them because they're great.
Yeah, I think just that, like, here's a space to move freely, unrestricted, and just if you're learning the steps, again, that's part of it. It might not look the best, but that's okay. You're in the privacy of your own home. Just do your best. Try to just move with a little more abandon. Like, I took an African dance class in college, and I was in the section with all dance majors, and they like know their body. Like, I was amazed because I'm like, you watch this for 5 seconds and you already know so much about controlling your body that they just like went for it. And I was like, I cannot be in this section. Like, I'm too self-conscious. And then I learned that there was an earlier section. So I was like, great, 3 o'clock versus 4 o'clock. Like, I would much rather be home sooner. And it was people a little bit more my speed. And I just was like, I don't care if I look bad now. And I probably should have just cared less anyway. But once I just decided to stop caring how I looked, it became much more fun. And I probably actually
100%.
then looked better. I still can't find the video of my dance recital. I apologize.
Okay, if you're not watching on YouTube, I'm like almost gonna pee myself laughing because the fact that Dr. Jenna took this African dance class in college is one of the first things I ever learned about her. And we lived together in grad school, and she told me about it then. And I think I hear about it quarterly, and it's my favorite fact about you that
It
you
was
took
so
this
much
class.
fun. I'm still
I
in the
believe it.
Facebook group when they do like classes in the park. I'm like, I don't live in Madison anymore, but I was like, this is such a fun like there's different dance moves based on the
Hmm.
different beats. Like, I learned so much.
I bet you did. I bet you did. If you're a kinesiology major at most colleges, you have to take like movement classes, and that clearly was one for you. That was not an option for me. Took like yoga, I think.
Yeah. But I was like, yeah, I'm very self-conscious and I'm very aware of it. And now here's a much better option. Like, this
Uh-huh.
is going to be a little bit more
Totally.
my speed versus like, or I could just be at home and then I wouldn't feel
Yeah.
like that at all.
Heck yeah. It's
And then we
so
did
good for you.
And then we did ballroom basics, and they
Oh,
were doing their own research even about seeing
hmm.
how that did for like falls prevention and everything there
Yeah.
too, and
Ballroom, what was it called? Ballroom basics?
for balance. Yeah.
Ballroom basics for balance. Yeah, we did that. And then we did a project with her our second year, right? And we like
Hmm.
organized all the research. There is a lot, let me tell you, a lot of research for dance in balance. Like a lot. So take the class. I urge you to. And this month this week actually we have a free scalable workout class on Thursday. So in 2 days from now, if you're listening to it today, and it'll be on YouTube for 48 hours after um it is released. So make sure you take a look at that if you want to. But exercising for migraine, literally, it helps you prevent migraine. And if you can catch a migraine in the prodrome phase, you can even help abort a migraine or like kind of treat the migraine at its source during that phase. If you can catch it then by like going for a walk, some gentle stretching, sometimes yoga, things like that. So exercise can/will change your life with a vestibular disorder and with migraine. If you don't have migraine, you're still listening to this anyway. Awesome. Hi. And you should know that there is also research to show that people who exercise are less dizzy overall than people who do not. So if that's not a reason to exercise, I don't know what it is. Yay. If I will say, if you have ME, then then your doctor will tell you. And then that is the only reason pretty much on this planet to not exercise.
Correct. Or like myasthenia gravis, which you
Yeah, well,
can, you just got to be a little bit.
really careful
There's
about it.
always exceptions to the rule, the
Yes.
gray area, but there's more
99%.
of a here's a different way we need to just add these considerations in moving forward.
Totally. Totally. Anything else about exercise? If you guys have questions, you can always ask us, but you know where to find us on Instagram or email.
Or vestibular group fit.
Or, well, yes. If you really have a question, vestibular group fit is your answer because we can really only do like quick answers on Instagram. Like you cannot give us your whole medical history and then ask for an answer. It just unfortunately is illegal and unethical. So
Yes.
join group and we can comment on pretty much whatever you want.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
We try our best.
We really do. We answer 100% of questions in there. It's really, people come for the class and stay for the community. How nice. All right. We love y'all. Thanks for listening. Happy June. Happy Migraine and Headache Awareness Month. I'll see you next week.
And
Bye.
get moving.
Get moving. Yeah.